It happened on a day that was supposed to be full of laughter. Balloons hung from the ceiling, candles flickered on the cake, and children's laughter filled the house. But for me, that sound, that innocent laughter, would soon become the memory that broke me. It was my son's 10th birthday. I had spent the entire morning decorating, cooking his favorite meal, and wrapping gifts in bright blue paper. He loved blue, always said it was the color of the sky when he felt happy. I remember kneeling by the table, straightening the candles, when he ran in wearing the little crown I'd made for him. "Mom," he shouted, "everyone's here." I smiled. "All right, birthday king, go welcome your guests." I didn't know then that those would be the last few moments I'd ever feel like his mother. The living room was full, family, neighbors, a few of his school friends. My husband, David, stood near the doorway, phone in hand as always. He looked tired, detached, but I ignored it. I had learned long ago not to expect warmth from him. When it was time to cut the cake, I called everyone over. "Come on, everyone, let's sing." We started the song, the candles flickered, and I leaned closer to my son, whispering, "Make a wish, sweetheart." He turned toward me, smiling. And then, right there in front of everyone, he said it. "You're not my real mother." The room froze. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "What did you say?" I whispered. He stepped back, his small face twisted in confusion and defiance. "Dad told me, you're not my real mom. My real mom is someone else." The laughter, the music, everything stopped. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the sound of the candles burning. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced a smile for the guests. "That's enough, honey. It's your birthday. Let's not joke about things like that." But he crossed his arms and shouted louder this time. "It's not a joke. You lied to me. You're not my mom." The children stared. The adults exchanged looks. And David, my husband, didn't say a word. He just stood there, arms folded, watching me fall apart in front of everyone. I felt my hands shaking. "David," I said quietly, "what is he talking about?" He didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward the kitchen, leaving me standing there, humiliated, surrounded by whispers. I somehow finished the party, smiling through the chaos, helping the kids cut cake, pretending I wasn't dying inside. Every time I looked at my son, he avoided my eyes. Every time I looked at David, he looked away. When everyone left, I went straight to our bedroom. The decorations still hung limp in the living room, blue ribbons swaying in the still air. David came in hours later, pretending nothing had happened. "You should have handled that better," he muttered. "It was just a misunderstanding." I turned to him, my voice trembling. "A misunderstanding? He said I'm not his real mother, David. Where would he get that from?" He shrugged, loosening his tie. "Maybe kids overhear things. Maybe he misunderstood something." But the way he said it, the calm, detached way, it didn't sound like confusion. It sounded like a man who wasn't surprised. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my son's face, angry, confused, hurt. I had raised him since the moment he was born. I had held his tiny hands, stayed up through nights of fever, kissed every scraped knee. I was there for his first word, his first step, his first day at school. How could he say that I wasn't his mother? But deeper than the pain was a question I didn't dare ask out loud. What if it was true? The next morning, I tried to talk to my son. He sat at the breakfast table, pushing cereal around his bowl. "Sweetheart," I began softly, "about what you said yesterday." He interrupted me without looking up. "Dad said you took me from someone else." My stomach dropped. "What?" "He said my real mom wanted me back, but you wouldn't let her." I froze. For a second, I couldn't even breathe. "That's not true," I said quickly. "That's not true at all." He finally looked up at me, and the way he looked at me broke something inside me. He didn't see his mother anymore. He saw a stranger. I whispered, "Why would your father say something like that?" He shrugged. "Because it's the truth." Later that day, I confronted David. I cornered him in the kitchen, my voice shaking but firm. "Why would you tell him something like that?" He didn't even flinch. "Because he deserves to know." "Know what, David? That his mother loves him more than anything?" He stared at me coldly. "That you're not the one who gave birth to him." For a moment, the world went quiet. The refrigerator hummed faintly in the background. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I laughed weakly, shaking my head. "You're lying. You're trying to hurt me because you can't stand." He cut me off. "I'm not lying. You know it's true." I stumbled backward, gripping the counter for support. "You're insane. I was there. I gave birth to him. I—" David smirked. "Were you?" That one sentence shattered me. For years, I had suspected David of cruelty, emotional distance, manipulation, control. But this was something darker. He walked past me, poured himself a drink, and said quietly, "Maybe it's time you stop pretending, Emma." Hearing my name like that, so cold, so detached, felt like being stabbed. I whispered, "What are you talking about?" "Stop pretending about what?" He looked at me with that smug, cruel calm. "You already know." Then he walked out, leaving me alone with a truth I couldn't understand, a child who now hated me, and a marriage that suddenly felt like a lie. That night, I sat in my son's room while he slept. I ran my fingers through his hair, the same hair I used to braid when he was little. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered, "You are my son, no matter what anyone says." But even as I said it, doubt crept in, because David had never lied casually. His lies always had a purpose, and this one felt like the beginning of something much worse. I didn't know it then, but what my son said that day, "You're not my real mother," was only the start of a truth that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. And what David would reveal next would change my entire life.
How could you do this to us? After all these years?
The next few days were unbearable. David barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was only to throw small, sharp words that cut deeper than he realized. Our son, once my shadow, my little heartbeat, now avoided me. He'd shut his bedroom door, whisper on the phone to his father, and fall silent whenever I entered the room. The house that once felt full of laughter now echoed with coldness. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. I tried to reach him, to reach both of them, but every attempt was met with walls I couldn't climb. "Sweetheart," I said one morning, knocking on his door softly, "can we talk?" "About what?" he muttered through the crack. "About what you said, about what Dad told you." He opened the door halfway, his eyes red from crying. "You lied to me, didn't you?" My heart clenched. "No, I didn't." "Then why did he say it? Why would Dad lie about something like that?" I crouched down, my voice trembling. "Because sometimes grown-ups say things when they're angry. But I promise you, I am your mother." He crossed his arms, defiant. "You can't prove it." The words hit harder than he could possibly know. When he closed the door, I stood there in silence, my hand resting against the wood, feeling the distance between us growing thicker by the day. Later, that afternoon, David came home early, something he hadn't done in years. He tossed his keys onto the counter, loosened his tie, and poured himself a drink like it was just another evening. "David," I began carefully, "we need to talk about what you told our son." He sipped his whiskey, Smirking. Do we? Yes, I snapped. You've turned him against me. He's 10 years old, David. He's confused. He's hurting. He slammed the glass down so hard it cracked. Then tell him the truth. I froze. What truth? He leaned closer, his breath heavy with alcohol. You think I don't know, Emma? You think I didn't find out? Find out what? I whispered. He smiled. Not kindly, but cruelly. You think I didn't see the papers? You think I don't know you weren't supposed to have him? I felt my blood run cold. What papers? He took out his phone, scrolled for a moment, and then held it up. On the screen was an email, blurry, incomplete, but I could make out my name and a word that made my heart drop. Adoption. I stumbled back. Where did you get that? He chuckled bitterly. So it's true then. I felt dizzy, like the ground was shifting beneath me. Yes, he was adopted, I said, quietly. But you knew that. You were there, David. We did it together. His expression hardened. No, I wasn't. I didn't sign anything. I stared at him, speechless. What are you talking about? Of course you did. You were there that day. He shook his head, almost pitying me. No, Emma, I wasn't. You forged my name. My chest tightened. That's a lie. He stepped closer. Is it? I stepped back, shaking my head. You're trying to twist things. You've always hated how close I am to him, how much he loves me. David's smirk returned. Not anymore, he doesn't. That sentence broke me more than anything else. He'd succeeded. He'd turned my son, my world, against me. That night, I went into my son's room again. He was lying in bed, holding the stuffed toy elephant I'd given him when he was 2 years old. It used to be his comfort on stormy nights. Now, it was just a relic of a love that seemed to be slipping away. I sat on the edge of his bed. Sweetheart, I whispered, I need to tell you something. Something important. He turned away. Dad said not to talk to you. My voice broke. Please, just listen. He sat up, frowning. Are you really not my mom? I swallowed hard. You are my son. I may not have given birth to you, but I have loved you every day of your life. I was there from the moment you came home. You were mine before you even knew what that word meant. He blinked, confused. Then who is my real mom? I hesitated. I didn't want to tell him. Not like this. Not when David was poisoning everything. But before I could, I heard footsteps at the door. David's voice. Don't believe a word she says, son. I turned, anger boiling in my chest. Get out, David. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You really think you can keep lying to him? Tell him the truth. Tell him where he came from. My voice trembled. This isn't the time. Oh, I think it is. He stepped into the room. He deserves to know his real mother didn't want him, that she gave him away, and that you— Enough, I shouted, standing between them. Stop it. David's eyes darkened. You took a child that wasn't yours and built your whole life on a lie. I felt something inside me break. When he left, the room was silent except for the sound of my son's quiet crying. I reached out to comfort him, but he pulled away. Leave me alone, he whispered. I sat there for a long time after he fell asleep, staring at the wall, wondering how love could turn into something so cruel so fast. The next morning, I found David in his office, talking on the phone. His voice was low, urgent. Yes, I have the documents. I just need confirmation. No, she doesn't know yet. He froze when he saw me standing at the doorway. "Who were you talking to?" I asked. He hung up immediately. "Work call." "Don't lie to me again, David." He gave a sarcastic laugh. "You're really not in a position to talk about lying." I took a deep breath. "You're planning something, aren't you?" He didn't answer, just stared out the window. I stepped closer. "If you try to take him away from me—" He turned suddenly, eyes blazing. "Take him? You think he's yours to take? You stole him, Emma. You made me live a lie for 10 years. His words echoed through the room like a slap. I whispered, "You were there, David. You signed everything. You held him before I did." He shook his head. "I saw the papers, Emma. They were forged. You wanted a baby so badly. You didn't care who you hurt." I covered my face with my hands. "That's not true." He leaned closer, his voice cold and final. "It doesn't matter. The truth is coming out. I've already contacted the agency. They're sending someone to verify everything." I froze. You what?" "Maybe it's time he met his real mother," David said, walking past me. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at old photos, the three of us smiling, his tiny hands in mine, his laughter caught mid-frame. Those pictures were my proof, my life. But as the clock ticked, one thought haunted me. What if he finds her? What if he chooses her over me? I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The next morning, I found a letter on the dining table, David's handwriting. "She's coming next week. Be ready to tell him the truth." My hands shook as I read it. He'd found her, the woman who had given him life and left him behind. I whispered to myself, "He's trying to destroy me. He's trying to erase me from my own son's heart." But deep down, I knew one thing. I wouldn't let him. Because no matter what the truth was, I had been there for every heartbeat, every tear, every smile. And if David thought he could take that from me, he was about to learn who I truly was. For days, I moved through the house like a ghost, silent, watching, pretending not to know what was coming. David thought he had me cornered, but what he didn't realize was that I wasn't the same frightened woman he used to control. Every night when he fell asleep, I sat by the window with my laptop, digging through every email, every message, every document I could find. The adoption papers, the old hospital records, the correspondence with the agency. I studied them until my eyes blurred. And that's when I noticed something strange. The signatures, they were real. Every one of them, David's included. The very thing he accused me of, forgery, was actually proof against him. He'd signed everything himself 10 years ago when we brought our son home. So why was he lying now? I had a feeling the answer wasn't just about control or jealousy. It was about something bigger, something he didn't want me to find out. A week later, the doorbell rang. I knew before I even opened the door who it was. The woman David had written about. The real mother. She stood there, in a pale coat, clutching a small purse, her eyes cautious but kind. "Emma?" she asked softly. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You must be Sarah." She nodded, stepping inside. David appeared behind me, smirking, his hand on our son's shoulder. "Well," David said, "now the truth's finally out." Our son looked between us, confused. "Dad, what's going on?" David crouched beside him. "Buddy, this is Sarah. She's your real mom." His eyes widened. "Real mom?" Sarah knelt in front of him, tears in her eyes. "Hi, sweetheart. I I know this is a lot to take in." I could barely breathe. Watching her reach for him felt like being erased in real time. But then I saw something, a flicker of guilt in her eyes, a hesitation that didn't match David's confidence. I turned to David. You said she wanted him back. Is that true, Sarah? She looked startled. I, well, not exactly. David shot her a glare. Tell her the truth. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I didn't know he was still alive. The room went silent. What? I whispered. Sarah's voice trembled. They told me he died 10 years ago. The agency said the baby didn't make it. David's face drained of color. I stepped closer. And when did you find out otherwise? Sarah looked at me. Last month. Someone contacted me, said my son was alive, and that I should talk to his father. My heart raced. His father? She nodded slowly. David Carter. My mind spun. So David had reached out to her, not to tell the truth, but to manipulate her into thinking I'd stolen his child. He wanted to destroy me completely. I clenched my jaw. So he lied to both of us. Sarah's eyes widened. What do you mean? I told our son that I stole him. He told you I hid him. But he was the one who arranged the adoption. And you signed the consent form, Sarah. I have proof. David's composure cracked. You're bluffing. I looked him dead in the eye. Am I? That night, I waited until the house was quiet. I sat at the dining table with the papers spread out in front of me, the original adoption files, notarized, with both of their signatures. But there was something else, something that chilled me even more. A bank record, a payment made from David's account to the adoption agency the week before the paperwork was finalized. He'd paid them off, not to adopt, to falsify details. He'd made it look like the child wasn't biologically his, when in fact, he was. I sat there, staring at the numbers, the dates, the handwriting. Everything aligned. The truth wasn't that I'd stolen someone's baby. The truth was that David had fathered a child with another woman, Sarah, and then tricked us both. He'd arranged the adoption under false pretenses, convincing me the baby was an orphan and convincing Sarah that her child had died. And for 10 years, he'd watched us both suffer in ignorance. My hands shook as I whispered to myself, oh my God, he's been lying to all of us. The next day, I called Sarah and asked her to meet me privately, away from the house, away from David. We met at a small cafe near the edge of town. She looked nervous, clutching her coffee cup. I don't know what to believe anymore. I placed the folder on the table and slid it toward her. Believe this. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the documents, widening with every page. Tears filled her eyes. He forged the death certificate? I nodded. He wanted to erase both of us. You as his past mistake, me as his inconvenience. Sarah looked up at me, shaking her head. What are you going to do? I exhaled slowly. What I should have done a long time ago. Expose him. She reached across the table, her voice trembling. If you do that, he'll destroy you. He'll twist everything. I smiled faintly. Not this time. I have proof, and I have something else he doesn't know about. Sarah blinked. What's that? My son, I said softly. He may be confused now, but he knows my love is real. And when the truth comes out, he'll see who his father really is. That evening, I went home to find David sitting in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. The moment he saw me, he smiled. That same calculated smile. Where were you? He asked. Out, I replied simply. He folded the paper slowly. You've been meeting with her, haven't you?
I met his gaze. You mean the woman you lied to for a decade? He stood, towering over me. Careful, Emma. You're walking a fine line. I took a slow breath. No, David, you are. He smirked, brushing past me. Enjoy your last few days here. Once I file the report, social services will take him from you. I let him walk away, my expression calm, but inside, I was burning with a quiet, fierce certainty, because while he thought he was destroying me, I was already 2 steps ahead. I had met with a lawyer earlier that day, and Sarah had agreed to testify. The agency, too, was reopening the case once they saw the falsified documents. David's little empire of lies was about to crumble. That night, I stood by my son's bed again, watching him sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. His small hand clutched that same old stuffed elephant. I whispered, "You don't know it yet, sweetheart, but everything is about to change. And when it does, I'll make sure you never doubt who your mother is again." The moonlight poured across his face, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hope, because this time I wasn't just a victim. I was a mother with a plan. The following week began like any other, but I could feel the storm building beneath the surface. David walked around the house with smug confidence, humming to himself, waiting for the day his truth would destroy me. But the truth, the real truth, was about to destroy him. 2 days before the supposed meeting with the agency, my lawyer called. "We're ready," she said. "Do you want to be present when we serve him?" I looked out the window, watching David mow the lawn like the perfect suburban husband, and whispered, "Yes, I want to be there." The next morning, the doorbell rang. David opened it, expecting another courier, another piece of his performance to control. But instead, 2 men in suits stood on the porch, holding official envelopes. "Mr. Carter," one of them said. "Yes, you've been served." David frowned, tearing open the documents. I watched his expression shift. Confusion, disbelief, then fury. He turned toward me, waving the papers. "What the hell is this?" I met his gaze calmly. "Proof of fraud, David. The agency has reopened the case. They know what you did. The forged death certificate, the false statements, the bribes. It's all there." He laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. "You think anyone's going to believe you? You're just some emotional woman who couldn't handle losing her husband." "Funny," I said softly, "because Sarah believes me. She's giving her statement today." The blood drained from his face. "You talked to her?" "I did," I said, stepping closer. "She knows everything. About how you lied to her, about how you tricked both of us. You took her baby, made her think he was dead, and gave him to me as an orphan. You built this family on deceit, but not anymore." David's hands trembled. You can't prove any of that." I tilted my head. "I don't have to. You already did. The bank transfers, the emails, your signatures. You left your fingerprints on every lie." He dropped the papers, his jaw tightening. "You'll ruin us all." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." Hours later, 2 investigators arrived. They spoke with me, then with Sarah. Our son stayed upstairs, unaware of the storm below. By evening, David's world was collapsing. The adoption agency's director called, confirming the investigation into his illegal tampering. His job, the one he'd valued more than family, demanded an immediate leave pending inquiry. He shouted, slammed doors, cursed my name. But it didn't matter anymore. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of him. That night, after the chaos, Sarah came over. We sat together at the dining table, 2 women bound by a decade of lies neither of us chose. She looked at me with teary eyes. I don't know how to thank you. I shook my head. Don't. Just promise me one thing. What's that? That no matter how this ends, our son never feels like he was unwanted. She smiled softly. He won't. And I'll make sure he knows what you did for him. In that moment, I realized something. Motherhood isn't about blood. It's about the nights you stay awake worrying, the sacrifices no one sees, the love that doesn't fade even when the world turns against you. A week later, the agency held a hearing. I sat beside my lawyer, trembling slightly as the officials read through the documents. Sarah sat across from me, and David, red-eyed, silent, stared down at the table. The officer looked up. Mr. Carter, it appears you falsified legal documents to conceal your biological connection to the child and misled both women involved. You understand the severity of this, yes? David didn't answer. The officer continued. After reviewing all evidence, the court recognizes Emma Carter as the child's legal mother and Sarah Mitchell as his biological mother. Custody will remain with Emma pending mutual agreement. I exhaled, the breath I had been holding for 10 years. David looked at me, his expression blank. You think you've won? He muttered. I met his gaze steadily. I didn't want to win, David. I just wanted the truth. When I came home that evening, my son ran into my arms, the first time in weeks. He clung to me tightly and whispered, Mom, I'm sorry for what I said. I felt my throat tighten. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. He pulled back just enough to look at me. Dad said a lot of things, but I know who's always been there for me. Tears filled my eyes. And I always will be. That night, as I tucked him into bed, he asked quietly, So, do I have two moms now? I smiled, brushing his hair back. Maybe, but love isn't something you run out of, you know? There's enough for both. He nodded sleepily. I'm glad you're my mom. I kissed his forehead, whispering, Me too. And as I turned off the light, I realized something beautiful. Truth may shatter your world, but sometimes, when the pieces fall, they reveal the shape of something stronger. Because family isn't about who you come from, it's about who stands by you when everything else falls apart.